Hi everybody, welcome to Dynamo Sword Channel. I'm David, and today on Dynamo Sword Channel I will be reviewing the Deepeeka Alexandria Arsenal Milanese finger guard sword. This sword is considered one of Deepeeka's top models and part of their Primus line. So how does this sword fare, and how does it compare to other sub $300 medieval swords on the market? Well, stay tuned and we'll find out. The Milanese finger guard sword is a direct replica of a well-documented 15th century sword housed in the royal armories of England. It originated from the Arsenal of Alexandria in Egypt and has an inscribed date of 1432. It is a very well-preserved sword, and aside from some pitting marks on the pommel and discoloration on the blade, is in pristine condition for an antique sword. This sword classifies as a Type 19 in the oakshot typology. The Type 19 was a unique sword that seems to have originated in the early 15th century, but some swords have a speculated date of the mid-14th century. The 19 is classified as having a slim, parallel blade profile and hexagonal cross-section, ending in an acute point. A defining feature of this type is a ricasso at the base of the blade featuring two short fullers encompassing the length of the ricasso. It also includes a central fuller reaching between a quarter to a half of the blade's length. Some of these swords feature simple bow tie guards, but some show signs of intricate hilting, including finger guards or even more intricate hilts in the later 15th and 16th century models. There are variants featuring two-handed and hand-and-a-half grips, but most swords of this type are single-handed. This type, unlike other blade types in the typology, are not given a subtype to denote longsword or hand-and-a-half proportion swords. Many of the swords of this type are believed to be of Arabic origin, primarily due to the inscription on the ricasso all being of Nashki script. These inscriptions were interpreted to feature dates and maker signatures. Many of these swords were presented to European nobles by Arabic delegates, but most were simply housed in the House of Victories in the Armory of Alexandria, but over time were moved to Constantinople. Today, most have a home in the Askeri Museum in Istanbul. It seems the Type 19 was a popular sword for the time in the 15th and 16th centuries, especially in Spain, where many riding swords fit the blade type but feature immaculately detailed hilts. A few notable examples are the Tizona, or as it used to be known, Sword of El Cid, as well as this sword here, shown here, housed in Madrid. Both have been featured in much art and media over the years, and today you can even see them on romance novel covers. Another prominent time we see swords of the Type 19 is in the 16th century bastard swords of Italy. These are all large two-handed swords that technically post-date the oakshot typology, but it's clear by their blade profile, fuller termination, and hexagonal cross-section that they would fit well into the 19 type. An even later showing of the type is in the 17th and 18th century basket-hilted swords of British, German, and Italian make, most notably in the Scottish basket hilt and the Italian schiavana, showing again how popular and long-lived the Type 19 was. In conclusion, the Type 19 showed much advancement in blade profile to offer a thinner profiled blade, and the use of a ricasso to reinforce the blade strength, and of course the hexagonal cross-section to promote cutting efficiency while retaining thrusting capability. There is a special elegance and artistry in this type that makes it stand out as one of the more attractive swords of the Middle Ages. Now, let's look at the overall statistics of this sword. So the overall length is 41 inches. It has a weight of 2¼ pounds with a point of balance sitting at about 7.5 inches from the hilt. The center of percussion is 23 inches from the hilt, and the sword class would be what is considered an arming sword due to its single hand grip length. Now, the blade's total length is 34¼ inches long. The base blade width at the ricasso is 1½ inches, and that tapers to 3/4 inch at the tip. The blade material is an EN45 high carbon steel. Its finish is satin, and the cross section is an ahistorical diamond with the triple fullers. Again, as we discussed, the blade type is what would be considered an oakshot type 19. The guard's total length is 5¾ inches. The quillion dimensions are 5/8 inch, tapering to 3/8 inch, and the inner guard is 1/2 inch, tapering to 1/8 inch. The material is a mild steel with a blackened finish, and the style is what would be considered an oakshot type 5 in the typology with the additional finger guard. Now, the handle's total length is 4⅛ inch. It has a base circumference of 3¼ inches, and that tapers to 2⅛ inch at the pommel. The handle material is wood, and the grip material is a blackened wire wrap. The pommel's length is 2 inches. It has a circumference of 6 inches, and the material is a mild steel, blackened like the guard. It has a peen hilt construction, and the pommel type is what would be known as a type G in the oakshot typology. Now, this sword comes with a leather wrapped wood core scabbard featuring a steel throat and shape blackened to match the hilt. Overall, it is a decent scabbard and fits the blade moderately well. The finish is decent for the price point, and the black leather is tight and well formed to the wood core, and it is stitched to this side. The throat and shape are well fitted and match the overall aesthetic of the sword. One thing this scabbard had that I removed was 4 hanger rings attached to the scabbard by braided loops. Unfortunately, these hangers didn't really fit well for use and were, in my opinion, an eyesore to the scabbard. Overall, a decent wood core scabbard that is nice to see at this sword's sub $200 price point. Overall, for the price point, this is a decent sword of a hard to find sword type on the market. Most Type 19 swords are well above the $500 price point, and sadly are not as featured on the sword market as much as they were 10 or 20 years ago. Though most swords of this type that were in the sub $300 market did kind of miss the mark on the blade profile and usually offer these sword types with a diamond cross section. This sword, of course, is no exception, as it too has a prominent diamond cross section as opposed to the more historically accurate hexagonal cross section. As far as fit and finish of this sword goes, there are unfortunately quite a few fit and finish errors. So, to start, when looking down the blade, there are quite a few marks and polishing errors. One of the biggest marks noticeable is at the top of the ricasso. The termination is rough, and there are heavy grinding marks on one side of the blade. The fuller termination is crude and lacks any crispness to their shape. This is unfortunate, as one of the most prominent features of the Type 19 are its elegantly finished fullers. The guard probably has the biggest fault on it, as only one quillion is properly terminated in the Type 5 bow tie. This unfinished quillion is also an eighth of an inch shorter than the finished one. The finger guard is also rather poorly terminated and quite thick. It functions properly, but sadly is rather crude and unattractive. The grip is nicely shaped, and the wire wrap is actually nicely finished. Unfortunately, whatever paint or lacquer they use to blacken the wire is flaking, and it actually has been since I got it out of the box. The pommel, much like the guard, is poorly shaped and has a lot of finish errors. The most apparent is on the faces of the pommel, where there are major polishing errors and dips. The edges of the pommel are also uneven and poorly shaped. The peen is small but finished decently, and there is no movement to the hilt, and the construction is tight and even to the grip and blade. Overall, I must say I'm rather disappointed with the overall fit and finish of this sword. I mean, for the price, I didn't expect too much, but many of these issues are basically simply cosmetic and could easily have been avoided with a little more attention to detail by the manufacturer. I mean, for under $200, it's not that bad, and what really saves this sword is its nicely profiled blade, and its weight and handling. The high point of balance is a little excessive and does make this sword feel a little tip heavy, but it is actually quite manageable. Also, I was impressed with the scabbard for the price. It is a decently made wood core scabbard. In the end, I purchased the sword basically because it is literally the only Type 19 produced today in the sub $300 market. I also wanted to test the waters regarding Deepeeka as a manufacturer and see if their swords had any merit for the price point. Overall, for the price of $160, it isn't necessarily a bad sword. It has a proper heat treat, and the hilt assembly and handling is good. It doesn't hold its own against other sub $300 swords on the market, but then again, I've always had a notion this sword was going to be either hit or miss, or basically a decent project sword to practice on and improve. I think with a little more work on the fit and finish, this sword could pass for one double its asking price. But overall, it just feels like an unfinished sword, or more or less a rushed sword, lacking any detail to its fit and finish, which really hurts this sword even more, as it's a replica of one of the more elegant and aesthetically pleasing sword types. Well, I hope you enjoyed this review of the Deepeeka Alexandria Armory Milanese finger guard sword. Be sure to like and subscribe, as well as look forward to the cut-in review with follow-up discussion. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.